Well, all right, let's talk about Kirk Cousins, the guy who has debatably the best agent in sports. It feels like it gets massive deal after massive deal, but let's talk about what that means for Atlanta, who is in a very unique situation as they, a lot of people felt like they were a team that was a quarterback away, so going out and getting a quarterback does make some sense. Like, let's start off with this play. I want to talk about some Atlanta Falcons tape before we get into some Kirk Cousins tape, as this is what Atlanta kind of wants out of a quarterback, I think, is just someone who's going to just run the offense, right? They don't need you to make superstar level plays. They have their stars on the outside. This play is a 3rd down and 8, and it's Drake London in a one-on-one matchup on the outside. Drake London, very good player. Watch as when Ridder takes the snap, he's going to look in London's direction. He fires in London's direction. Look how open London is. What they need is someone who can, look at these routes, time them properly, and get the ball down the field in that area. Which I have to say, Ridder is pretty good at this stuff. Ridder does do this pretty effectively. Like, look, Ridder is able to hit London there. The issue with Ridder was not being able to hit these throws. It was stuff like this, which is, definitely the issue. Was Ridder would kind of run the offense, but then he would make some of these types of mistakes, where I'll play it in a second, but watch what's going to happen. So, Ridder is going to take the snap, and right here, this is 2.5 seconds in, which I always kind of talk about the 2.5 second mark being usually when you kind of have to make your decision. It's a play action, so I'll give you an extra maybe like a third to a half of a second on play actions, but still, right around now, Ridder kind of has to make the call of if he's going to throw the ball or not throw the ball. Instead, he holds onto the ball for far too long, ends up, they lose the ball, and while they recover, it's a safety at that point, and it's never a good idea to fumble the ball in the end zone. This was an issue Ridder had. I mean, this was the Falcons last year in general, was the offense was actually, when Ridder would run it well, which was, I don't want to say always or even most of the time, but often he would run the offense well. It looked really good, and the offense looked really impactful, but he just made too many turnovers. And I think for Cousins, Cousins will put the ball in harm's way as well, but you're hoping to get more of the being able to just run the offense stuff and a lot less of the putting the ball in harm's way stuff that Ridder gave you. Well, now let's go over to Cousins. Can Cousins bring that to the table for for Atlanta? What was he able to do in Minnesota? Well, he did stuff like this, where it's zone coverage that the Eagles are going to be in. Justin Jefferson is running that route right there, and it's Justin Jefferson, so he gets a lot of attention, right? So then when KJ Osborne runs that route, that's what you hope can work. That's how you hope that this, that's kind of the main thing you're looking at on this 3rd down and 3. Kirk Cousins takes the snap. He's going to look in that direction. You see Osborne is, open. And so Cousins doesn't hesitate. He gets the ball right to Osborne, and they're able to pick up that completion. He does this at a really high level, Cousins does. Cousins is consistently making these difficult, or I guess I shouldn't say difficult throws, but making the, the throws that he has to make. He makes the layups, and when, he makes his free throws, right? And he almost never misses at those. And there's so much value in that. And even stuff like this, which I'm not going to say is like a hard play, but maybe a harder play, where what's going to happen is it's Justin Jefferson in a one-on-one matchup, so Cousins is read pretty easy in this one. With a single safety deep, you know where he's going. Jefferson knows where he's going. The only people that seemingly don't know where Cousins is going with the ball on this one are the Philadelphia Eagles. Watch as when Cousins takes the snap, he's going to look in that direction, fires in that direction, and yeah, there's a window. This is, as expected, going what you would have thought here. But still, this is a really accurate ball down the field, and Jefferson is able to, kind of have a weird finish to that play, but a really good play by Cousins to pull that kind of thing off. I think the logic behind this actually makes total sense. The Falcons had a pretty good defense last year, and an offense that felt like a quarterback away, and maybe was also hindered by some coaching. So going out, getting a guy like Cousins, who should be able to, add some real value to your roster, makes a lot of sense. And I think some Falcons fans might be saying, well, hey, why is it, are we people just talking about, well, maybe we can make the playoffs? People should be talking about us as, could we win the Super Bowl, right? I mean, this is a really good quarterback, a top 10 quarterback, I think pretty easily a top 10 quarterback, joining a team that was a quarterback away. Well, let's talk about the contract itself and the reason why Kirk Cousins has in many ways become the poster child for the quarterback that is a very good quarterback, but you probably can't pay them big money if you want to win a Super Bowl type of guy. 3 wins. 3 wins is what we're going to start off with here. Kirk Cousins, on average, his typical PFF WAR gets you around 3 wins, which is really good. That's like a top 10 quarterback pretty consistently, maybe even a little better than top 10 quarterback typically. He's very good quarterback, helps his team win a good amount of games. This year, the average team will spend $30 million a win, right? Because the cap is $255 million, and each team will win on average 8.5 games. So that is the average amount of money teams will spend on a win. So if you're going to do the quick math here, that means Kirk Cousins is worth $90 million. Well, that can't be right. Clearly, there's something I'm missing here, right? Well, no. Kirk Cousins is worth about $90 million. That's a fair thing to say. But it's a bit more complicated than that for two main reasons. Let's start off with the first one, which is that, well, the goal isn't to win 8.5 games, right? And while it would be a fair contract for Kirk Cousins to get $90 million, given the rest of the field, that actually isn't what you want to do. For example, if the goal is to win 13 games, if the goal is 13 wins, that's your what you're trying to accomplish here. I picked 13 as that feels like a good number to be a Super Bowl contending team, a Super Bowl winning team. Then Kirk Cousins is worth just $59 million a season, which is still, a lot more than he's getting paid. He's getting paid $45 million. So isn't this a good thing? Doesn't this mean that this is a good contract? Well, in some ways, yes. They will be a lot better, I think, this next year than they were last year with a quarterback like Desmond Ridder, who was probably kind of a replacement level quarterback. His WAR was probably 0. And even though he was getting paid basically nothing, it's better to have a guy like Cousins than, not taking advantage of the quarterback position. Here's the thing, though. If you look at that, if you use that ratio, the one I used for Cousins, let's use that same ratio for some of the other quarterbacks in the league. For example, the two quarterbacks that played in the Super Bowl, Mahomes and Purdy. Mahomes is worth around, and this is estimates by me given their typical WAR, and what I estimate the WAR to be, but Mahomes is worth just under $100 million a year, and Purdy is worth $49 million a year. This is using if the goal is 13 wins. So if the goal is 13 wins, you could, in theory, pay Patrick Mahomes $98 million, and if everybody else you had the same ratio of WAR to money spent, you would have a 13-win team. Brock Purdy is worth $49 million. He wasn't quite as good as Cousins is in a typical year, but it's still very good, and so that's kind of where it's at. And again, both of these guys are getting paid a lot less than that. Patrick Mahomes' contract saves $48 million, and in fact, so does Brock Purdy's. That saves $48 million. Cousins' contract just saves $14 million against that deal. And while you could try to make that money up in other ways, get some other, great players on, low contracts, which they do have some of that, like a Drake London, for example. The biggest issue with a Kirk Cousins contract is you only get one quarterback position. And with a guy like Purdy or a guy like Mahomes, that can save $50 million if the goal is 13 wins, like $15 million with the ratio of trying to get to 13 wins, which is a lot more than if I was just doing a regular value. For Cousins, you have to make up that $34 million elsewhere, which is a lot of money to try and make up. So that's why usually a guy like Kirk Cousins can get you to the playoffs and can maybe even get you to win a playoff game or two. It's hard to for him to get to a Super Bowl, because once you get there, if they go on a deep run, they're going to have to play the 49ers. If they go to the Super Bowl, they might have to play Patrick Mahomes. And it's not impossible, but they kind of have to be perfect everywhere else. That being said, like I said, I think this is still a move that's going to help them get to the postseason. And I'm not saying it can't win you a Super Bowl, just that's why it's more difficult than other positions. But at the same time, I think a lot of Falcons fans might sit here and say, hey, if we can get a Brock Purdy, sure, we'll do that. Yes, please sign me up, and we'll get a good quarterback for only $1 million. If we can get a Patrick Mahomes, sure, sign me up. I think they would trade Cousins for Mahomes. Those guys aren't available, so this is kind of their next best thing, and you know what? Fair enough. I understand it. But yeah, those are my thoughts. Want to kind of break all that down for you. Hope you enjoyed this video. Let me know what you thought in the comments below. Always love hearing from y'all. And of course, as always, thanks for watching.